Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our webinar entitled My Transaction Story, the NetEffect Story. We'll begin in just a few minutes. We're going to let a few more people who are in the waiting room jump on in, and then we'll get started. All right, as people jump in, let's go ahead and get started. My name is Aaron Mall, Executive Vice President here at iTValuations, and we're grateful for the time you're giving us today as we explore a little bit more about the story of NetEffect and their successful transaction about a year ago. And David and Shelly, it's great to have you on the call. Thanks so much for joining us. I've also asked Shelby Clark from our team to join us. Shelby was a big part of that transaction, played a pretty pivotal role throughout due diligence and negotiations, and so she'll be here to mostly keep David in check, to make sure that just like throughout the transaction that he does what we tell him to do. But what a fun journey it was for iTValuations and NetEffect. So we're happy to talk about that a little bit today. I do, for those of you who've joined us before, you know that a tradition we have at iTValuations is we ask a trivia question. And the trivia question typically centers around our guests and something about them. So we're going to keep that going today. The trivia question is, where did David and Shelly vacation shortly after selling their business? Now, I just noticed real fast, before you start jumping in the chat with your guesses, I think a couple people from the company that acquired them jumped on. So you can't guess because you likely know. So you can't guess, you cannot win. But for the first person to drop the correct answer into the chat, we will give a $25 Amazon gift card. So where did David and Shelly vacation shortly after selling? I live in Cincinnati, and I will give you one hint. It was not to Cincinnati. Promise, it was not to Cincinnati. A couple housekeeping items before we jump on in. A couple upcoming events and webinars. We will be in Denver at the Q3 Evolve, August 11th through 15th. Corey Kearns, Greg Northrup, and Reed Warrenwolf from our team. And so if you're looking to connect with us while you're in Denver, we'd love to have spend some time with you. August 13th, that's the Wednesday of that week, there's IT Nation Grow, which is really a one-day workshop around all things M&A. Love to touch base with you there. We have several times we'll be speaking to the larger group. And so again, I'd love to see their IT Nation grow. And then our next webinar is August 21st. It's Understanding the One Big Beautiful Bill and its Impact on Your Business. Greg Northrup, the managing partner at IT Tax Advisors, will be hosting that conversation and digging into more details around the bill. Here's my joke I've been saying for the last couple of weeks. I'm pretty sure not a single congressperson read the bill, but Greg Northrup from our team has read it. Okay, so he's capable of knowing what's actually in the bill, and so join us for that insightful webinar. All right, let's dive into why we're all here. The NetEffect story. From time to time, we like to highlight successful transactions, and the idea is to let those of you maybe who are weeks, months, or years away from those transactions get a little bit of an inside scoop on how the process went. And so what better way than to talk to people who've gone through it, right? And so let's kick things off. David and Shelly, would you both just introduce yourselves and share a little bit of history about NetEffect?
David,
you're muted.
Great.
This is his first time on Teams.
I guess I'm a rookie. Yeah, I'm David Rounds from NetEffect. I'm the general manager for Las Vegas under Courser. Started in 2001, right at September 11th. Made it through all of the 2008 snafus and 2020 COVID snafus, and I was happy to join Courser in October 22, or excuse me, October 22nd of 24.
Fantastic. Shelly.
I am Shelly Rounds, and started NetEffect back in 2001, and from there, Dave and I built an amazing company focused on operations and finance and the marketing side, but really about the customer experience of how they were serviced, which really helped our company grow. It's an exciting experience through all the tears and sweat and blood and laughter.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think it might be good for us to go back to the beginning of this process. And in the beginning of the process probably isn't the day you go to market, right? There's days and weeks leading up to that. So what prompted you both to start thinking about selling? Was it a strategic move? Was it a personal decision? Was it due to market timing? What are the factors that went into you deciding to sell?
I'm getting old. No, no, that was the start. I mean, I've been doing this for 24 years now here, coming up in October actually, and we were actually looking to accelerate our growth and looking to acquire another company. And around that point in time, we were looking for some financing mechanisms and had to go through a process. We went through the evaluation process with ITV to help down that path, and then after we were done, you guys kind of mentioned to us, hey, have you guys actually considered selling instead? And we really hadn't at the time. We've been preparing our company for years, making sure our operations was buttoned up and our financials are buttoned up and those kind of things. But we were doing that to get ready for, high growth. And instead, after conversation with you, we decided it was right for us for a variety of reasons.
Shelly, what would you add as you both began to consider the possibility of selling?
I think with all the cybersecurity challenges that were going on at the time last year and the year before, the high stress, it was something we loved the business, but putting our retirement at stake all by ourselves without having partners involved with us was a big part of why we actually pulled the trigger.
Yeah, mitigating risk for some of us. I mean, Shelly worked in the business with me since we started. We've been partners all along, and
Our eggs were all in the same basket.
Yeah, and thinking, with several of our friends actually gone through some cybersecurity incidents in their MSPs, we never did, but and what effect had on their business. Being able to mitigate the risk and know that we weren't in it alone if something were to happen, and that we're not worrying about losing our entire retirement and everything we work for just because there's something we couldn't prevent.
Right. Yeah, David, you talked about in the answer to the first question how you had been in some ways preparing for years to sell your company. Can you maybe walk through what that means? How are you doing that? Maybe what advice would you give to someone who thinks, I'm 5 years out, I've got plenty of time, I don't need to do much right now?
Yeah, well, you guys could definitely give on some of the times and stuff a little better advice than that. But what I would say is first of all, we were involved in some peer groups like Evolve and Robin Robbins peer groups, and we learned a lot through a lot of these webinars like you guys are doing. And it really meant about preparing the company to be seen in a way that's ready for transactions. So a great example would be is making sure we're paying a fair salary, which make sure the financials are good, and depending on your corporate structure, take distributions out. At the same time, make sure you pay yourself a fair salary, because after you do that a couple of years, that's what the buyer is going to expect as your ongoing salary if you're staying in the business. So you want to make sure that you're doing what's fair, but also make sure that your EBITDA is growing, your revenue is growing on a regular basis. So for us, it was about making sure operations is buttoned up, putting a marketing plan in place to spur growth, and making sure our marketing was solid, because that's very attractive to the buyers. As we found out, we were just doing it for growth, but as we found out during the transaction, it's very appealing to the buyers. And then of course, making sure your ratios are right. I mean, they look for several years. It's not just the last year, it's 2, 3, 4 years sometimes. And every buyer is a little different as based on the information was requested when we were going through the LOI process. So you need to be able to tell a story of if you aren't having a good year, why you didn't have a good year, what things you've taken to do to make it better, and then show positive growth in either and top line revenue and gross margin and EBITDA dollars. So we focused on that as the primary part of our business, whereas for years we didn't. It was a lifestyle type of business. It's like take all the money out, put as much as we can, and as far as owner thievery, things like that. But when you're really looking to get into financials for either acquiring another company or for selling, you need to be pretty buttoned up, and that makes the due diligence process and the process with the LOIs much easier.
Well, I think something that really supported us was the documentation that we did and the processes that we created so that they were scalable. regardless of who was running the department at the time, is that they were doable over and over again. It not only helped us with our customer experience, but also in the sale of the company. And the contracts, the reoccurring contracts, with the addition of every year, they would renew automatically. That was a great selling point.
Yeah, I think there's we can attest that we do a couple hundred valuations a year, so we see all sorts of financials, and we love it when we have pretty clean financials going into a transaction. It feels like things are going to get a lot easier for us, and we like taking those companies to market. We also like taking companies to market maybe who aren't quite there but who want to get there as well. So I want to bring in Shelby Clark from our team. You were a part of the team who brought the buyers to the table for NetEffect, and there would have been no shortage of them. Our process is a little bit different, but maybe walk through the process you went through to make sure the right buyers got to meet David and Shelly, and what specifically were you looking for NetEffect?
Yeah, so I would say we take more of a unique approach. We definitely don't spread the net wide. We just are very specific with where we put our net in. And so it starts with a lot of conversations. I'm sure Dave and Shelly can remember the extensive conversations around where they want to end up post-transaction, their company, their employees. And knowing that actually evolves quite a bit throughout the selling process. We really look at the three things. We look at the strategic fit and the cultural fit, and then obviously the financial aspects of it. And so we really weigh heavily on what post-transaction life looks like. I think when you meet a lot of mature buyers, you're going to notice that LOI, due diligence, that whole process is pretty similar. But really, after you sign on the dotted line, what does your future look like? And that's a lot bigger piece of the pie than just maybe that 3 or 4 months where you're getting ready to go to market and then going to market to sale. And so we really like to bring in a diverse group of buyers who often offer like different future opportunities for our sellers. And so knowing that Dave and Shelly both individually had some different desires, but also they were looking to not be done after 2 or 3 months. We usually don't suggest that at all, either way. We usually get, 6 months to a year. It's kind of the ideal, even if you're ready to transition. But they had different desires, and obviously as they started to see their life with the buyers that they were kind of interviewing, it made it clear that each of them were going to offer kind of a different future for them. And what we notice is the financial piece can usually be very similar, and I'm sure Dave and Shelly would say their offers that they entertained were extremely similar, but the futures looked really different. And so what we love to do is give our sellers the opportunity to really weigh the things that matter rather than just the financial piece, so that they can find their future and the future for their employees, and then the company that they've built, as it's the only time that that you'll sell your company. And so that's kind of the focus that we take, and then help our sellers remember what's valuable to them and what their goals are, because sometimes in the process it can feel overwhelming to just have a lot of people that you really like and that like you, and you can see different futures with all of them. And so helping them remember, okay, this was the goal that we talked about. Is that still the case? And if so, this is what it would look like in each of these opportunities.
And now, go ahead, Aaron.
No, I remember that month for you all. I think 4 or 5 different intro meetings and 4 or 5 different financial package calls and 4 or 5 different operations calls. And what I remember most was that you were on the West Coast and I was on the East Coast. And so a lot of these calls were pretty late, past my bedtime. But I thought it was really fun because I saw the energy. I saw you both become energized by the opportunity. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think you came into the process a little fatigued, not worn out, but fatigued. And then I think you got to reflect back.
It's a better word than burnout.
Right. Well, yeah, I would say there was some weariness, but I think what was fun to watch was people saw the value of the business you had built, and that was energizing to you. And then they provided a new energy that you didn't have. As the owner, you carry the weight of that energy a lot. And so it was fun to see you both kind of transform and gain energy through the process, especially when we connected you, I think, with the right group of buyers. So I'm curious as you reflect on it, is that how you recall it, or am I just remembering it incorrectly?
I remember it like transforming. Like when we first started, here we we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and here's the time frames we want, and being very rigid on what we wanted to do. And then after meeting the right buyers and interviewing with the right buyers and that kind of stuff, that kind of changed. It's like, oh wow, you're right that as the owner, I don't care what size you are, everything kind of relies, sits on your shoulders. And there was some fatigue. It's like, how are we going to be able to transform our business in the next 3 to 5 years with the cybersecurity challenges out there, with AI coming in there, which I think is going to revolutionize our business and fundamentally change how we have to provide services over the next 4 to 5 years. How are we going to be able to do that? Because it's, mostly all on me. Now, if you're a $10 million MSP, then you have some middle management and things in there that are helping you out with that. But it still comes down on you to drive the business forward as the owner. And what I started seeing by interviewing these buyers is that I had a partner. It wasn't all on me. I have a partner now that could help me drive those forward. Someone I could bounce ideas off of. And that did energize me. It gave me a renewed thing. It's like, hey, we can do this. So it transformed a lot, and it also expanded our timelines of what we were looking to do.
Yeah, talk about that. Talk about how the timeline changed. Maybe Shelly, for you specifically, because I feel like things changed for you throughout that process.
Yeah, well, one of the first things I noticed was our processes, as we went through the process and the buyers that you presented to us were phenomenal. So we had a really hard path to make choices. And one of the things that stood out to me was our processes were so buttoned up. And as owners, we work really hard and we were about excellence and we keep going. We didn't stop a lot to celebrate our wins. And so actually celebrating our wins through this process was eye-opening for us, and to be around people that were noticing them and looking at them and wanting to purchase our company really did energize us. And when I went into the process, I was kind of done and like, you know what, I'm happy for you, Dave, you keep going, but I'm ready to move on. But as we went through the due diligence, it really energized me. I got excited. These people, all of them were great and had great ideas for our company, and it kind of had me go down a different path of really wanting to be involved in the next phase of NetEffect. So that was exciting for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key there is selecting the right company to partner with, right? I mean, you asked earlier, how do we prepare for it? Well, I wish that I had read some more books on it. The book of Emotional Side Selling and Get Acquired for Millions. Those are some great books. Because I all of a sudden, in the middle of all of this, had to hurry up and read these books so I could understand some more stuff. Because I wish I had done that before, because it would have helped with the process a lot.
That really helped us in the interview process. Having those questions and being able to be unbiased and ask the same questions for each interview that we were going through, so that we could look back on the answers, because it does get you do get energized, and it starts to become overwhelming of all the different interviews you're having. And so it was great to have those questions that we could go through, and Dave could get answers for each one of them.
Yeah, I went through a transaction several years ago, back in 2019, where I bought out my former partner. And one of my peer group members said, go down and write down your top reasons why you should stay and stop reasons why you should leave, because we were trying to decide which partner was going to leave. And, what are your top 5 things of why you would do that? What's most important to you? And I was unlucky enough to go through that process back then, but lucky enough to have that in the back pocket. So those were questions that we kind of put together for ourselves prior to meeting with our companies or the buyers who were interested in us during the interview process, and it gave us something to evaluate them on. So when we're going through that process, having your list of absolutes, and it's not money necessarily. That could be something, right? But for us, it wasn't money. It was, how are they going to take care of our staff? Are they going to take care of our clients? What are they going to do? I didn't care about my brand name, frankly, for me personally. But if that's important, you should have it on the list. And we built a rubric together for all of these people we interviewed and asked them the same questions and got our answers together. So there's a lot of preparation before, not just your financials, but also emotionally and intelligently, because when you're interviewing these buyers, especially if you're dealing with any of the PE firms, they're probably smarter than most of us. They were definitely smarter than me in business, right? So I had to be prepared so I could ask intelligent questions and same with Shelly. So we worked hours on that.
Great. Also, the two books Dave referenced, thanks for those who dumped them in the chat there. The Emotional Side of Selling a Small Business and Get Acquired for Millions. Get Acquired for Millions, actually, Reed Warren, our CEO, actually has a chapter in that book. So on valuations as well. So a good read, a good listen if you're more of a listener. The chat does have those two links, but does not have any guesses yet of where David and Shelly went after they sold their business. So $25 Amazon gift card, which you could use to buy these books. Okay, so this would be like a net zero opportunity. Haven't seen a guess yet on where they went after they sold their business, but drop that in the chat. If you get it close, we'll go ahead and we'll give you a $25 Amazon gift card. So next question. And I'm going to ask Dave and Shelly first. I'll have Shelby reflect on this as well. Every seller at some point has a wait a minute moment where all of a sudden the biggest objections or reservations are beginning. That's a pretty common thing to have in a transaction, especially when you're, most of the time you're going to sell your business one time in your life. It's a one-shot deal. So talk about those moments for you and how you manage those in the transaction process. Dave, start us off.
One of the buyers said to me, you can dictate the price, but I get to dictate the terms. And I was like, what the heck does that mean? And then I started seeing the LOIs and I was like, well, the prices were all very similar. The terms were so much different. And I'm like, and now it was like, okay, now I have to evaluate the price versus the terms versus what's it going to do to our tech stack? How's it going to affect our clients? How's it affect staff? And yeah, I remember before we signed the LOI, we were up at a cabin up in Utah, and we couldn't eat regular food for 2 days. We were up over the weekend. We just ate charcuterie and drank because it was a hard decision. There was, so yeah, those wait a moments definitely came in there. And what does that look like? And am I rolling more equity up, or not? And to me, it was the terms because we'd already made the decision to sell. Now it was the terms, my clients and my employees, and who was going to take care of it and what repercussions going to have on there. I think you guys got off lucky on that because I know other buyers that like right before they signed, they like, I'm out, they're done. Had to go through that. You might have gotten lucky with this on a little bit. But it is definitely nerve-wracking because it was a huge change. And gosh, wait a minute, I got to have a boss. I haven't had one in 25 years. What's that going to look like? Am I manageable? I don't know if I'm manageable. So those were some of the things that
yeah, that's definitely a problem.
It came out.
Shelly, what would you add to the wait a minute moments? Did you have any in the process?
I think, it was our baby. I mean, we built it from scratch. And so to, go through the process of signing and letting it go. And that was very emotional for both of us. And that's why we weren't eating. And it was just, it was not expected at all to feel that way. So that was definitely a process to go through. But I think it was hard to make the decision of which one. And making sure that we were making the right decision financially, and also what our life would look like after. Trying to, kind of have a crystal ball and project that, which you really don't. You have to go by the logical questions that you asked and the answers, and your gut and your intuition, and so it was definitely an interesting process to go through.
I would add one more thing to that. At some point in time during that process, I went, oh, holy crap, we're going to be on a fixed income now. Like, Now, yes, we had money we put in the bank and all that kind of stuff, right? You want to, in investments, but you want to keep that and you want it to grow, right? You want just like your business does. So it's like all of a sudden it's like I can't pull out an extra 20 grand in distributions because I want to do X, Y, and Z or go buy a house or something like that. It's like I'm on a
Right.
fixed income. So that one was like, get your budget ready ahead of time and figure out what you need
Yeah.
because that one was a little scary.
Shelby, this is a one-time event for them, but it's a multi-time a year thing for us, right? We help companies all the time. Anything jump out to you about their experience that was unique or different or pretty similar to what most sellers go through in this situation?
I think it's unique when you have a partner with you to do it. So you guys can talk each other off the ledge at night. And so and sometimes it can be difficult when none of your team knows and you're an individual owner. And so just kind of preparing, the people around you that you are going to be able to let in, to be ready for those emotional ups and downs. And like Dave said, we didn't see, the signing moment of panic. And honestly, we don't see that a ton. What we typically see is kind of in the final due diligence stretch where there's kind of that exhaustion emotionally and you're trying to keep it away from certain team members and it's getting more difficult. And then, the buyer asks for one more thing and you're like, that's it. I'm not giving him anything else. And then, we work through that and hopefully, and what we often do see is signing day is actually an exciting part rather than like I'm exhausted and I don't care anymore part. We really try to manage so that's not the case. But yeah, I would say if you can have, a person, a few people, trusted advisors, whoever it is, that can just help you process some of those things. Like Dave said, all of a sudden you're like taxes or, these things that maybe you didn't put a ton of focus on at the beginning that you're starting to recognize, or, oh my gosh, I have a boss now. And can you get connected to somebody that has sold recently and has gone through that process? Yes. So really being able to share with those trusted people that will kind of come alongside you and help you process those aspects of taking on a new role.
Yeah,
100%
I
agree
want to
with
jump
you.
to yeah, I want to jump to the signing of the LOI piece because I think that's where for some it gets real. We've kind of talked about how you interview the buyers with that process. You've got multiple offers. You're making the decision on signing the LOI. What was it like making that decision? Was it the charcuterie and wine? Was that kind of what it was like making the decision?
I wouldn't say it was wine. It was more like hard alcohol. But yeah, yeah, it
I think it
was.
was just like, wow, this is real. This is really
Yeah.
happening.
Mhm. Yeah.
And having to walk through that process of, this is it.
Yeah.
Well, and we hadn't shared that with our leadership team yet. So it was just us going through it. I mean, a couple of our family members knew, and I had a really good friend that was also a business owner who was kind of, there. So having a team of people around you that you can be confidential with, is definitely helpful. But yeah, the LOI, I mean, we had three, if I remember, was narrowed down to three great offers. And the terms were all close, but they all had their caveats and they were different. The companies were all good companies. We would have liked either one of them or liked any one of them. So it came down to us going back to that list that I talked about from my former transaction with my partner, where what are the must-haves and why would I be with this company and why would I choose not to be with this company? And even though the company that we ended up going with had one of those on there, which was like an absolutely no, we changed it because of the culture that we had met with all their key executives. We had talked through it with them. Their core values were an EOS shop. Their core values were aligned. They were also an EOS shop. Their vision for what they want to do with the company was aligned. So we were able to use that to evaluate, like I said, almost in a rubric. But yeah, I couldn't eat. I mean, I couldn't eat. I was nervous. My heart rate was up. Couldn't sleep for 2 days. Thank God we were in the mountains. Um, but it was a big change for us and a big decision.
I think it wasn't just for us. It was like we really believed this was for our employees and our clients as well. And to take them and hand off 23 years of what we had grown, we weren't just looking for our own future. We really wanted to make sure that the company we chose is also going to take care of them, both of them. And that was big on our shoulders. And
I
so
remember
values and culture were really important part of this process, which I didn't expect. I didn't expect that would be one of the key purposes of this whole journey.
Dave, I remember multiple times, you're from Vegas, and you said on multiple occasions how important it was for you that your reputation personally
Yes.
would still be supported, because people trust. Vegas is a big town, but Vegas is a small town, like you kept telling me, right?
Mhm.
People know each other, and you have contracts with important businesses in the industry, in the area, and so I saw you wrestle through that piece of it. It wasn't just about David Rounds, but it was about what the work you
Oh,
provide
no.
as a company, right?
I mean, one of the main reasons we sold is, like I said, originally we were looking to grow our business because I call it elevation and speed. If you think of an airplane, we had a lot of speed and we were slowly gaining elevation. And I wanted to get more elevation because that allows you to do more things, especially for your employees. So I had employees that are great staff, great employees. One of them has been with me 21 years, another one being 18 years, and I have several that are 6, 7 years. And I'm like, I am holding them back from being able to further their careers. So by partnering with who we did, we were able to offer them more opportunities, either in the larger company and technical experience now. So that was one of the reasons why I founded my business, was to provide a great place of employment, and also provide great support and customer service to our clients in Las Vegas. But the other one was specifically to take care of the staff, right? And so being able to provide that, or believe I can provide that, which has turned out to be the case, just so we're clear, I'm very happy with our decision, was why we did it. And it's nice to see now, because I have employees getting involved with people all over the country that are their peers. So it really helps them grow.
I think one of the questions we get kind of post LOI is kind of related to some of these things, is when do you bring the inner circle into the decision, right? Due diligence, typically 60 to 90 days in a situation like yours. When did you decide to do that, and what was your reasoning behind that?
Well, I think every company and every management and leadership team structure is going to be different, and you have to make your own decision. Um, for us, it was, we didn't bring them in until after the transaction was closed. So we had signed the closing paperwork, and actually, I take that back. We brought them in after the LOI was done, and we brought them in, our key leadership team, during the due diligence process. We didn't tell the rest of the staff till after it was closed and the transaction was done. And we brought the key leadership team in because obviously they're part of our L10s, part of our US stuff. But frankly, we needed some help. Due diligence is a lot of work. It does, once you sign the LOI, it doesn't slow down for you. It speeds up for you as far as what you need to get done. So we brought them in, individual one-on-one conversations. And we had decided at that point in time, what kind of incentives, if any, we were going to offer our leadership team in order to stay, because we needed them to stay on for the transaction as well, and made it worth their while, so that they would want to stay and be part of the process. And they took it very well, because again, the company was founded on providing great customer experience and providing an amazing place to work for staff with integrity and excellence and all those kind of things. And they were built in or bought into that culture. So when they got to know a little bit about the company that purchased us, and what we saw in it, then they were on board. So for us, it was because we were aligning with our values and everything else our company was founded and running on with the buyer. That was easy. A little more nerve-wracking with the rest of the staff, because all of them were just kind of shocked. But our partner really did a great job in coming in and introducing themselves, and after the transaction closed, and really talking to all the staff with all their executives. So it was a really amazing experience.
We are coming up on time. I realize we have like 5 questions left, so we're not going to get to them. I guess 2 final questions. Number one, integration. How's it going? Number two, Dave, you have another boss. You already had Shelly, but now you have another boss. How's that going?
Yeah, now I got two, actually three, because my director of operations is another of my bosses. But um, the transaction we did showed limited immigration. I mean, the company that we were with was excellent, and they do a kind of a hybrid model, which is awesome for what we were looking for. Um, but I told you that once the LOI signs, things speed up. Integration and transition doesn't slow things down; it speeds it up more because now you're running a business. You're running a business that you have to keep going the way it was or better, and you have to do all these other things. So um, it's been a great process. There's been its challenges, there's been its ups and downs, there's all those kind of things, but it doesn't slow down. That'd be another piece of advice I'd offer. Unless you are sign a deal that says around 1 month, something along those lines, or 2 or 3 months, plan on it being accelerating your workload a little bit, and know that there's something, a light at the end of the tunnel, or at least 6 months or a year down the road. But it doesn't slow down. And what was the other side of that question? Oh, how's it having a boss?
Yeah.
If you pick the right company, then the right person will be your boss. And my boss is more like a peer, more a little bit of mentorship in there, obviously. But if you're doing things right and you're doing things as great as you were before, then having a boss is awesome. If you think you're going to um, sit down and sit around the office and do nothing for 8 hours a day, and expect your boss to be happy, that's not going to happen. So
Yeah.
again, it depends. I think it's selecting the right partner.
Shelly, I know I said last question, but I have one more for you, and that is, what advice would you give to someone who's maybe considering selling their MSP within the next few months or to a year?
I think a list of questions really helped with the process for us, having so that you can clarify exactly what it is that you want to know, to help make the decision. And I think, I think that you guys made it so easy and actually entertaining at times for us, and a very and also helping keep Dave in line. You guys were great coaches. Um, and I know this wasn't your question, but I would just say, once signing, go on a quick vacation, at least a small one, before you jump in with both feet, because the train does go really fast. And it's nice to just take a break and celebrate what you just created before you start onboarding with a new company.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for both of you joining us and giving us the gift of your time. For those of you who are not familiar with what we do at ITV, we are a business transformation company who just happens to do a couple hundred valuations a year, about 15 transactions, some buy side, some sell side, a couple mergers a year. We have a CPA firm called IT Tax Advisors, and launching a peer group called Value Creation Academy later this fall. So if you'd like to get more information about that, you can scan the QR code. Maybe you're in a place right now where you don't know if you should build your company, grow it, maybe get that elevation that Dave's talking about. You should buy a company to maybe get that growth, or if you should sell. And the reality is, that's a hard choice for owners to make, but most of them land at this inflection point of build, buy, or sell. If you're thinking through those three options, we'd love to have a conversation with you, a complimentary consultation with Reed Warren. You can scan the QR code and we'll set that up. Last but not least, and the reason you're still on the webinar, is the question around where Dave and Shelly went after they had that successful closed transaction. Shelly, where did you go?
Puerto Vallarta, Mexico.
What was that like?
It was great. We drank a lot.
Drink some more. And we're not alcoholics, but we should drink some more.
They were not before or after. So yeah, fantastic. Well, we so appreciate, again, both of you taking some time to share some of your story. You were a delight to work with, and so grateful for the great landing spot. At iTValuations, we often say the success of a transaction is not determined when the deal is signed. It's a year after, because that's when you know if you made the right decision. And we're so grateful you all landed with a great company and a great spot. And thanks to all of us, all of you who joined us today on the webinar today. We're looking forward to seeing you back with us in August as we talk about the One Big Beautiful Bill. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.